Good afternoon, everybody. We had some questions about the presentation and if we were getting started yet. So it is 1:30 now. I'd like to welcome you all to our July 2020 release kickoff. It's Monday, April 27th. And I'd like today's session to get started with our Mentimeter. So to get started with this, you should be able to go to menti.com, enter the code 932886, and you'll see something like this. You're free to do this both on your phone or on your computer. So when you get to Menti, you'll be asked what's one word you would use to describe your work experience this past month. For me personally, I found working remote both good and bad. So I'm going to say it's mixed. And then Brianna, if you could show the results of the slide, that'd be good. So setting in Mentimeter. So I'll go ahead and leave this up. Please remember the answer or the code is 932886. We'll go to the next slide. So I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Corey Cortez. I am with the Fiscal Change Management team at for the SEO and STO releases. Today we're joined by two of our SEO experts. We have Nicholas Milani and Anthony Trong. Welcome. Also joining me is Brianna Lee. And I'd like to give special thanks to James Anderson for hosting the WebEx for everybody. All right, so what you guys came here for? In July 2020, we are going live with the next big iteration of functionality for SEO and SEO. There is a whole host of functions that are going to go live for SEO control staff, but there are only 3 areas that are going to impact departments. And we've sent out the infographic on the right of your screen for everybody to review. So that was sent out, I believe, last month. If you need it, there's a link in the presentation, and so you'll see it there. That's for everybody to share with your teams. We've broken out the functionality into 3 groups. There's the Fiscal SEO Legacy, that's their SEO Legacy mainframe, the integration items between the two. And there's cache validation appropriation control. And then finally, there's the plan of financial adjustment, PFA interface. All right, so now we have the next Menti question for today. How much do you know about the SEO SEO integrated solution and how it helps the state? So I talked a little bit about new integration items, but we'd like to get an idea of what that means, or what you guys understand that means, to help us manage and create content for you. So if you go to menti.com, you can enter the code. I know quite a bit. So we'll use these results to see if we should include more content around this, if you guys would like it. Give you guys a minute. Okay, so while you guys continue to do that, we'll get into a little deeper about Fiscal and SCO legacy integration items, what those items are, how they're going to impact you. To give more of a background on SCO integrated solution, it ensures that accounting between Fiscal and SCO legacy are in sync. And so you'll see here, we've got a nice little diagram. There's Fiscal and there's the SCO legacy systems that are housed over at SCO. We consider anything that's going from Fiscal to SCO legacy outbound, and anything that's from SCO legacy to Fiscal inbound. And so that's just data that's going back and forth and needs to be in sync between the two systems. And the goal is to have a complete transaction integration and reconciliation between the two. So that way Fiscal and SCO match as much as possible. And the way this is done is there's multiple interfaces that have been released over the past 2 years that send and receive transaction information between Fiscal and SCO legacy. Okay. And then for those asking, the Menti code we have, if you go to menti.com, the code is 932886. We really appreciate all the feedback that you guys give us. Okay. To help everybody really understand everything that's gone live over the past 2 years, we created this slide. And so this is at a high level, all of the different transaction codes. So that's what we're using in legacy terms that are going back and forth between SCO and Fiscal. You'll see that there's inbound. We've got all the TCs listed there. I know that there was a lot going on, at least this year, with some enhancements to some of the TC 35 and 38 for different of the remittances on the outbound side. There's also the warrant book of records. So now we've got claims or issue claims and paid claims that are going from Fiscal to SCO outbound. And then when we're talking about what's coming, so you'll see here we have TC29 SMIF transfers. You guys know that as SMC, SMD for the credits and debits. There's some TC35 loan and investments. There's just some small important things there, and TC36 pro rata. The final part of direct transfers, so there was a little bit of direct transfer content and functionality that went live in March for direct transfers initiated outside of the Fiscal DT process. So now we're incorporating some new content for, or new functionality for the direct transfers initiated by the Fiscal DT process. We'll go into that a little bit more later. There's advances, and the big one is going to be the PFA journals. It looks like we're getting some questions about the PowerPoint presentation. So I don't have the invite open right now, but if you have the invite, the PowerPoint presentation is linked in the calendar invite. You should be able to go to ServiceNow and download it directly from there. If you guys can get the presentation, the PDF version of the presentation, we had a question about how can I print the presentation. You should be able to just print the page if you only want to print one page, or that you can print the whole presentation using the PDF. All right, and please, if you guys have questions, I'm here, I'm looking at the questions as they're being asked, and we have our experts from SCO who can help if you have anything specific to ask. And then, hey, Bree, I had a question about my microphone. Is it coming in all right?
Microphone sounds clear to me.
Okay. All right, so I'd like to go into some details because we had a question about, some year-end impact. So I wanted to be clear. So this release is going live in July 1st. So everything that we talk about is going to be for the next fiscal year. Okay, so Fiscal is releasing functionality for advances. Just so everybody's on the same page, when we talk about advances, we're referring to when a department records the amount advanced from their appropriation or fund to a service agency or fund. So it's paying kind of for something upfront a little bit. The types of advances covered is the general, SCIF, ORF, and DGS. So there's going to be no change to your legacy process. And what I mean by that is if you are reaching out to DGS to initiate an advance, you'll continue to do that exactly how you're doing it today. Or if you're initiating a SCIF advance, you'll do that exactly the same, or a general advance, exactly the same. There will be some changes to return of ORF advances, so you'll still initiate the ORF advance the same way, but there's going to be some changes that are going to happen prior to July that are separate from the July release. And there's a job aid around that. It's Fiscal Job Aid 176 ORF advances. We'll update that job aid and let everybody know when that happens. So if you do ORF advances today, please be on the lookout for that. Okay. And so we're still getting some questions for the overall interfaces. I'm going to pass a few of these to our experts. So the first question that we have is, hey, Bree, can you go through some of the questions?
Yep. The first question that we have is, will July release impact the fiscal year 2019 to 20 year-end process, such as PFA journal, SMIF transfer for fiscal year 2019 to 20 transactions?
Hey everybody, this is Anthony. I'm working on milestone 3 for SEO Fiscal. So the answer to that question is no. The July release would be effective basically at the start of the next fiscal year. So it should not affect fiscal year end this year.
Thanks, Anthony. The next question that we have is for TC30. Would the DDs we get from SEO qualify as well?
Okay, not too clear on what the question is asking, but I believe this relates to redeposits. In the past, these would have been processed as TC30s, and they were interfaced in by the TC30 interface, CM039. That's actually been going on since October 2018. However, right now, I believe redeposits are being processed outbound as a TC35 instead.
Question is, have CLR TC37s been interfaced to Fiscal already?
Yes, so for Fiscal department, actually all departments, all TC37s have been interfaced inbound since November, since the November release, and that includes both the CLOs and the CLRs.
Okay, the next question that we have is related to the direct transfer process. Will we need to crosswalk to SCIF, PIA, CTS, or these agencies need to crosswalk?
Okay, not sure I got this question either, but this is only the only change to the DT process. Well, I should say the changes to the DT process only affect DTs that are initiated from Fiscal. So that means right now, and there are slides on this later, but right now this is only DGS. There will be a few other departments coming live in the near future. For those departments, they may be reaching out to the build departments and asking for chart field values for Fiscal as well as Legacy, similar to what DGS has.
Okay. So we've got some questions coming in. I'm going to continue going through some of the presentation because I think some of the questions might be answered by our content. Okay, so now that we know what types of advances are coming in, let's go over some of the changes. So advances starting in July will automatically be recorded in Fiscal. They're recorded in two different ways depending on the types of advance they are. For SCIF and DGS, they're going to create GL journals and budget journals in Fiscal for your department. That's going to be automatic. And then for ORF and general advances, Fiscal will create a budget journal that's processed through some allocations in Fiscal. And so today, departments do two things with advances. They'll create a GL journal, and then they'll let FSC know to record the budget and the appropriation. You no longer need to do those. The GL journal will be created for you, and the budget will be created as well, automatically. There may be some reclassification here if you record your advances with departmental chart fields, just like any other interface that we have from SEO. The amount of these is pretty light, so hopefully it's not burdensome here. Okay, so looking for some questions, see if we have anything for advances. Okay. Doesn't look like we have any questions for advances, so let's get into TC29 Smith transfers. The big
Corey,
change.
sorry to interrupt. I think we did have one from finance for advances. Is the
Okay.
year-end open question? Somebody wants to read it so we can do this cute back and forth thing.
Okay, I'll let you go, Bree.
Question: is there any change toward fiscal year 2020 to 21 year-end open journal entries such as TC40?
Yep. So for the TC40 advances, like Corey just went over, the category 96 and 98s will be interfaced in, meaning that departments would no longer need to record the catch-up journals for those advanced types. And they also would no longer need to reach out to the SEO Fiscal commitment control team to record the budget journals on their behalf.
Okay, great. Here's another question. There are some TC39s that are already live. There will be more TC39s with the July release. Is there a list of which ones are already live and which ones will be going live? Example, PIA, GUS, OES, etc.
We're actually just about to get into that. So you'll see here that OES, CHP, and this one is CAL FIRE and SPB are going to be live coming soon. At this time, it's just DGS. So let's see. Okay. So we can get into Smith transfers a little bit. So like I was saying before, TC29, the Smith transfers are going to interface as well into Fiscal, and they will be recorded under the statewide BU 0000. And so if any of you out there are fund administrators, you might be concerned about that because departments don't have access to statewide BU 0000 for your reporting. And we know that, and we actually got together last year. We had a little workshop, and then with the takeaways from those workshops, Fiscal, SEO, and DOF worked together, and they designed a new business process for recording the Smith transfers in Fiscal. And you have to be sure that Fiscal's goal is to minimize the impacts to departments and make sure you have the same reporting capabilities as you do today. So the initial change in July is that the SEO legacy transactions interface, the GL 108, will post those Smith transfers. And then you should know that we're going to continue to roll out new functionality to make sure that you get the same reporting as you do today over the course of fiscal year 2021. And so we've got some, the teams have been working really hard on that. We don't have all the details ready for you now, but when we do, we will get back to you. And so for now, what that means is you'll no longer need to create catch-up journals for Smith transfers. Since these credits and debits are all recorded in BU00, there's just no need for it. And so you wouldn't want to do that in your departmental BU as well, because that'll double post it. And then please, if you are a fund administrator or you work with Smith transfers. Be on the lookout for fiscal notices informing you of all these additional enhancements after July. Okay, we're getting some good questions coming in.
The first question is, this person would like clarification that Smith SMC SMD entries, will a journal be posted per entry? For example, an entry per.
Correct. So basically, because it's interfaced, it'll be recorded in Fiscal by our interface, GL108, the same night that it posts in Legacy.
Next question is, are we going to be able to post departmental chart fields on Smith entries?
So I think the answer to that one is no. And these, like Corey was saying, these would actually be recorded under BU000 and not under a real BU. So right now, fund administrators are recording catch up under your own BU. This won't be the case going forward.
The next question is, do we have access to view BU0000?
So that ties in with the bullet point number 2 on this slide, but the answer is yes, I think so. So we are working to see what we can do for the fund administrators so that you guys will be able to reconcile with SEO and make sure that everything is interfacing in correctly. So right now, the solution is not quite finalized yet for what we're going to have be ready on June 30th. So we'll be giving you guys more details at a later time, but we are working on something to give you guys the ability to see these interface transactions.
Okay. The next question is, when will Smith interest revenue be interfaced?
So if I'm not mistaken, that's already being interfaced now, but if that's not the case, the answer is that it would be interfaced the same night that it posts to SEO Legacy.
The next question that we have is related to Smith interest for the fourth quarter. Do departments still need to accrue that at year end?
So I believe so. There should be no changes to your year-end process for this year.
The next question is, we have to draw federal funds before the new fiscal year advances can be processed. What if the cash is not yet available when the advance journals hit?
Okay, so just to clarify, this advanced activity is being interfaced in from SEO Legacy. So I imagine that you would have to do a draw before you can do your advances in, even on the Legacy side. It would be the same process going forward.
Okay, the next question, when the July release is implemented and departments are behind in running, or we can answer this one during when we cover PFA. The next question would be, so ORF ADV no longer will require replenishments.
Sorry, I'm trying to scroll up. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I don't believe that that is true. Yeah, so basically the ORF Advance functionality that's deploying as part of this release would just basically be in establishing or augmenting your ORF Advance or returning the ORF Advance. And replenishment claims should be outside of the scope of either establishing or returning the advance. you would need to process or for replenishment claims to replenish your CTS account for agency checks that you wrote the same way that you do today.
All right. We have one related to ORF. Does the treatment job aid 086 apply to ORF and SEO warrant is cheap?
Okay, I think that one is going to need to be a takeaway for our prod support team, unless Corey or Brianna, you guys are familiar with that job aid.
I don't have the details to that question, so we'll have to take away and get back to you.
And I believe the last question for now is SEO going to disable agencies keying cash account 1109100 in Fiscal?
Corey, is there any CMO stuff related to this topic?
What is that account?
That's pending cash GL.
No, I don't have the details for that specific account at this time.
Okay, well, I mean, I can answer. I'm not the subject matter expert for this, so if my answer is not sufficient, we can always treat this as a takeaway and follow up with prod support. But yes, that's correct. Starting July 1st, departments would no longer have access to pending cash, and departments will no longer be able to record catch-up journals either.
Okay, so yeah, we do actually have a whole lot of change management related to the catch-up journal part. It's not related to the July release, so we'll have to get back to you with more details specifically on what we're doing then. Okay. All right, so there's a few, I think we've covered most of the questions for Smith, so I'm going to go on into direct transfers and then we can get back to the remaining questions. So we've got the TC39 direct transfers. These have previously interfaced through GL 108 for departments that are not using the Fiscal direct transfer process, and so that's really only been DGS so far. And then on the right here, you'll see the list of departments that are coming soon. So you have OES, CHP, CAL FIRE, and SPB. And what's been going on is that when, currently it's only DGS creates, their billing department among a whole set of billing departments. They use the Fiscal direct transfer process. The information is created for them in AR, and then for you guys, since you're the bill department in AP. However, there's a delay between when that transaction is recorded in SEO Legacy and when it's recorded in Fiscal, and that can result in, the two of the systems being out of sync. So to address that concern, anytime, let's say DGS, which is a Fiscal billing department that uses the direct transfer process, every time they initiate a direct transfer, that same night, there's going to be a GL journal that is recorded in Fiscal to make sure that SEO Legacy and Fiscal are in sync. And so once the transaction has posted an AP or AR submodule, Fiscal will automatically reverse out that GL journal. So there's nothing you need to do. It's just something that we're telling you guys to be aware of. You don't need to, reclassify that GL journal or do anything with it, since when it's posted, it'll be kind of reversed out. And the other part of this is sometimes those, like if you have an AP voucher and it's sitting in build error, this will keep the two systems in sync as well. So I want it to be very clear that, departments, you're still responsible for reviewing any of those vouchers that are in build error to facilitate the voucher posting. So that way that the GL journal can get reversed and the system stay in sync the whole time. Okay. So we have our Menti now. So go ahead and refresh this. Do you like dogs or do you like cats? All right. I'm personally a dog person. Um, so while we go through our Menti and we get some dog versus cat action, we can share the results later. I'd like to ask, or I'd like to go through the next questions. So I think we've got one with something about the TV reports. Bree?
Hey, Corey, real quick, sorry. So uh, I need to make a correction to one of my answers to a previous question. So apparently, departments will still have access to pending cash GL. Sorry for the confusion. We will be sending out examples and communications on this topic. So again, I'm not the subject matter expert for these production support changes. Sorry about that.
All right, thank you, Anthony, for that clarification. Now we have a question about TV reports and how this will show up.
Yep. So we are again working on some solutions for the fund administrators, and I don't want to say too much right now because it's not been finalized yet. But I believe that fund administrators would still have access to see the interface Smith activity and other BU0000 activity for the funds that they administer on the GLTB as well as other existing reports.
Next question is there any change for FM12 PFA journal entry? And we'll answer that when we cover our PFA section, which is coming up. Next question is the July release. Does the July release impact transactions based on accounting date or transaction date?
So I believe the answer to that is transaction date. So for the inbounds, we would be inbounding them. Basically, if a transaction posts in legacy after July 1st, we would be bringing those inbound. I'm not sure when that question was asked, so I don't know what topic it was about.
Okay. Next question is for any of the interface journals, we know that the source is used when. If we need to reclassify any chart fields, should we change the source to FSCC/10N?
Yes, that's correct. And Corey, what was the job aid number for the consolidated reclass job aid? Okay, well, anyway, there's job aid, and Corey will figure it out and get back to you. But the answer to your question is yes. For your reclass entries in GL, continue to use source 10N SEO type, and FSCC um, is actually the type that we had recommended before. So yeah, I mean, it'll work. Yep.
Okay, next question
The
is
job aid for that is Fiscal 451. It's just called reclassification of SCA legacy transaction interface entries.
the next question is Fiscal system applied one replenish voucher to several prepaid vouchers. Please let us know if Fiscal has a solution for departments to apply replenish voucher to the same prepaid voucher.
Okay. I think that one's going to have to be a takeaway for AP prod support or for BUSD.
That looks like all of the questions that we have for now for that section.
Okay. So the next section that we have, we're going to cover more content over CVCVEC. So this is our cash validation appropriation control. Okay. So fiscal departments should be familiar with SCO's existing validation. And this is just something that exists today. It's probably existed for a long time. Departments will use Fiscal to process payments and transactions, which then will interface to SCO legacy. And then SCO will validate if there's enough cash, fund cash, or appropriation authority to cover that payment. And they do that in their SCO legacy system. So if SCO determines that there's not enough fund cash and or appropriation authority, they will void the transaction and notify you of an NSF. So I'm sure all of you are very familiar with receiving those NSFs. And for July, there's actually going to be no changes for all of the departments from the current process. We are looking at a pilot, but that is a small pilot with just a very small group of people. So for almost all departments, there really is no impact. Fiscal is implementing new functionality to track that there is enough fund cash and appropriation authority to complete the transaction. So what this means is that in July, your department may see a CVCVAC related warning. So, there's a lot of warnings in Fiscal. This will just be a new one that will identify that there's not enough, that Fiscal thinks that there's not enough fund cash or appropriation authority for the transaction you're trying to complete. You might still have the cash, but we're just going to review and compare and reconcile with legacy for next steps. And then after July, as we get more data and as we are working towards, adding additional controls from SEO to make it easier for departments, since I know that those NSFs are a big deal when you get them, so that way you can see them up front. And we're just letting you know that Fiscal will notify you well in advance before any changes occur. And so those you'll see those CVCVAC warnings in Fiscal, and you'll see them if you have insufficient funds or appropriation authority. So you'll actually see the little warning, but your transaction will still go. You'll actually still get an error similar today. I mean, that's not going to be any different if you have no budget. So like even if you have zero, if you just have no budget, the transaction will be stopped. But that's not any different than today. So I know that's kind of simple. I'm basically telling you that nothing's really changing for you. That Fiscal is just going to track your cash and appropriation. But if you guys have any questions on that, please let us know. Okay, so we've got a lot of. So we did have one question.
Question that we have is, if you're funded by reimbursements and using associated revenue, how will this impact cash validation?
Nicholas, are you in the call?
Yeah, sorry. So since we're just basically doing track with, there still will be no impact for this. We're just tracking. We're not, we're not holding anything up.
We have one question is, if a transaction is posted in July for the prior fiscal year, 1920, will the July release impact that transaction?
I don't know if this is related to CVCVAC, but CVCVAC's not going to impact anything. I don't know if they were referring to previous information from Anthony, maybe he can answer that if this is related to CVCVAC or from the prior information.
Mari, if you could provide a little more information in your question. Okay, so she's saying that the transaction question is related to the previous question. So Anthony, if you could provide any input in that.
Sorry, too many back references. I don't know what the previous question was. Okay, let me try to scroll up and jog my memory.
It sounds like it's for PFA.
For PFA, okay. Let's cover this. Oh, it's for PFA. Okay, yeah, let's cover this later. We'll come back to this
We
later.
have
Yeah,
some more
we'll be
content for PFA.
going over PFA in the next section.
Okay. So we'll take a little pause on some questions, and then our next session is going to be around PFA. I wanted to get into some of our Menti results. So you'll see that we had quite a bit of Menti results on how you would, how you're feeling about the work experience the past month. We're saying some people are saying it's interesting or challenging. A lot of people are saying it's really good, and some people are even saying it's great. I know that some people have, my experience too has been mixed with how busy I've been. There was I think sometimes I'm more efficient, sometimes I'm less efficient, and so it looks like we're getting a good mix of people. So then when we get into our next question about how much we've known about it, most people know a little bit about it. A few people know none. I'm the only expert, it sounds like. All right, looks like there might be some more interest in kind of overall why SEO and Fiscal are going through the SEO integrated solution and STO as well, and what their part is. So we might be able to make some new content for you guys to get a better grasp of what's going on. Dogs versus cats. Dogs win. Yay. I'm not a big cat fan myself, but my mom would probably chide me for that because she loves cats. Okay. So we can keep rating cats for now. And get back to the presentation. So we've gotten, this seems like this is and this really is probably the biggest piece of functionality that's going to go live in July. Let's get into it. Let's start with just baselining everybody, make sure we're all on the same page when we talk about PFAs. So a PFA is it refers to a set of plans of financial adjustment, and these are proposed by state departments to allocate cost paid from one fund to another. So if you have like to basically to the ultimate fund, just to move that money around and make it easier for you. And I'm sure most of the people on this call are very familiar with it today, but if you need to, you can go to the State Administrative Manual at section 8452. So not every department has a PFA, just a lot of departments, especially the bigger ones, do. And over the past few months, we have Fiscal has been working directly with departments to make sure that your PFA was configured correctly in Fiscal, to make sure that your PFA letter, or that the configuration Fiscal is in accordance with your PFA letter. So we've asked departments to update their PFA letter, and I know many departments have, and I think almost all of the departments that we're in the process of validating have completed their validation. I know that there's still some out there. We actually just had a go live before today. And so what's going to happen is, and what's been happening if your department has gone live, is Fiscal validates the eligible PFA transactions to ensure that they are in accordance with your letter. And so those include your LD, your labor distribution, any type of allocations that you have set up, and then there's some online GL journals that are also subject to the validation if they're using the PFA code. So hopefully you guys are all familiar with that. If you're not, we've got Anthony here who might be able to answer some of those questions. And then what is going to happen in July is that we're going to be including a PFA, or we're going to be releasing a PFA interface. And this PFA interface is going to record all of the details that you that you want. I mean, it's going to be very much driven by you, your department. They're going to record that, using the interface to SEO Legacy. And so today, it's a big process where you have to run your PFA query or report, sometimes multiple, and you have to summarize all of the PFA-related activities from LD, allocations, manual allocation, GL journals, and journal vouchers, and all your activity in Fiscal. And then you have to use that information and prepare a paper transaction request and send that to SEO. I know it's a big process. In July, we're going to have a new page, which is going to show you a list of all of your PFA activity, and you'll be able to select any of the eligible, that just means validated, activity that to be sent over to SEO Legacy. So this should help you with some of that, that big work that you have to do every, sometimes multiple times a month, but typically at the end of the month. And so this is going to be a one-way interface outbound from Fiscal to SEO Legacy. And so I don't have more details I'm showing you here. We have the mock page. There's a lot of work being done on this right now. And the basic workflow is that, for each given period of time, it doesn't necessarily need to be a month. Depends on your department work and your department workflow and your business process. You're going to interact with a PFA interface page. You'll select activity from the page, and then you'll be able to preview it. It'll have like your TC36, and it'll show you what it looks like. And then you'll have to you can go in and review the transactions in a deeper detail and certify the activity. And then after the activity is ready to go, it'll undergo the cache reclassification and be tracked for CVCVEC, and kind of get batched up and ready to be interfaced and recorded in SEO Legacy. And then of course, if you need to, you'll be able to go in there and you'll be able to review a history of your PFA transactions, and you can use Fiscal to make updates to those transactions as needed. Okay. So the final slide I have here is the goal is to reduce error and workload. The interfaced PFA transactions are connected to the PFA activity, so this is a big benefit because all the activity will be connected, and all the corrections will be in Fiscal, so it's just kind of transacting in one system. And because of this, it'll limit errors in SEO Legacy, since all of the transactions that are interfaced to Legacy will have a source. And you'll no longer need to have that big effort to create that PFA piece of paper, the transaction request to SEO. So that's a big piece of work that hopefully be reduced. I don't know if it might not be, but because you might just be doing that in the page, but at least it'll change. Departments will then you'll be able to review and certify directly in Fiscal in this new page. And this page is being worked on to be as efficient as possible for you. So there's going to be a lot of questions around this. So I'm going to pass it off for some questions.
Quick FYI, there were some questions not submitted in the Q&A, but in chat on previous topics like direct transfer.
Okay, we'll go through this too. So we'll go through the PFA related questions first. Thank you everyone for submitting them. I know a lot of you submitted them earlier, so we're going to get to them now. The first question is, how do we handle the outstanding PFA in Fiscal as of June 30th, 2020?
Okay, I'm going to need to defer this question. So Corey, when is the next town hall thing for PFA scheduled?
We're still looking at the best time to schedule it. So, right now we've got some high level details for you in this presentation. Just to be clear with everybody, we will give you a much more detailed presentation about how that review page is populated, what it looks like, potentially a demonstration of going through the process to populate that page. And at that time is going to be a next town hall. We'll have it before July, but we're still looking at the best time to schedule that.
Yep. And basically, from our team's perspectives, we have a solution, but we need to finalize that with SEO and with finance. So that's why I would need to wait until the next town hall, specifically about the PFA interface, to answer that question.
The next question that we have related to PFA is, when this July release is implemented, and if departments are still behind in running allocations for PFA in fiscal year 2019 to 20, will Fiscal automatically create PFA journals and interface them to SEO?
I think this question was asked before the slides on the interface came up. So there wouldn't be anything automatically interfacing. Departments would need to go to the review page and select what is ready to interface over, and then also provide certification and legal authority before it interfaces. So you do still have control over the timing. Yeah, did I answer the question in full? Was there more?
Yeah, if you guys feel like you'd like more clarification, please ask again. We'll keep going through the questions in the order that they're asked.
All right, the next question that we have is there any change for FM12 PFA journal entry?
Okay, so I think this is not going to need to be another question that gets addressed at the next town hall for PFA interface.
All right, next question is, so if departments run allocations for June 2020 in July or August, will the new PFA functionality apply? Would that mean that it would affect year-end for 2019?
Yes, that's correct. So basically, if you haven't sent it over yet to SEO, by it I mean the TC36 PFA transaction request, before the end of this fiscal year, then our PFA interface functionality will be impacting those outstanding PFAs. And again, we'll have more details for you at the next town hall.
The next question is, you said it was mentioned that the functionality would go by transaction date and not by accounting date. The PFA will have 6/30/2020 accounting date, but the transaction will be in July/August. So will the new functionality for PFA go by accounting date or transaction date?
Okay. So I think to make this clear, your accruals, they'll still happen in prior year, the way they are now, right? But what the PFA interface is sending over is the cash basis transaction, and that's always going to be recorded current date, just like it posts in SEO legacy.
Okay, next question is, will there be a job aid to help us identify GL transactions that will not allow us to select SPFA to interface or not be identified for PFA?
Okay, for that question, I think I need further clarification. So if you could ask a follow-up question with more elaboration, please.
The next question is, will the ZZ PFA transactions query be unaffected by PFA July? The new PFA process.
So I think the answer to that is no. Our team is not updating either the existing PFA report or the existing PFA query. However, we will have new reports and pages deploying as part of our functionality.
The next question is, how are PFA estimates going to be handled after July 1st?
Right now, the plan is these would be entered into Fiscal as GL journals with the SEO type for estimated or advanced PFAs, that's ESAD. And those would workflow to SEO for approval before they can post. And then after that, right now we are planning on showing those transactions on the review page as well.
Okay, the next question is, how will this impact PFAs that require cash transfer?
So again, this would need to be something we answer at next town hall. But our plan is to give departments a way to associate transactions so that they interface over at the same time.
Next question is there an internal department workflow approval for PFA, for example, Approver 1 or Approver 2?
That we'll take that one as a takeaway. Again, we'll have more detail for you at the next town hall.
And then while we go through the questions, I want to make sure everybody knows we're tracking all of these questions. So anytime Anthony's saying we're going to do that at the next town hall, I'll make sure that there's a place where you know, oh, hey, I asked it before. This question was answered.
Okay, next question, during the review and certification process, will we be able to specify a process date to allow us time to draw funds?
So right now, that's not something that's planned on. Rather, uh, you should do your draw and then review and certify. So basically, you should not have any issues timing your TC36 outbound interface transaction with your federal draw because it should be interfacing the same night that you um, review and certify on the PFA interface review page.
Okay, the next question is related to bond funds and asking if they will be handled the same way.
I am not sure what same way is, but I think that must have been that question must have been asked when we were discussing cash transfers, in which case, yes. Yeah, basically, we are planning on giving departments a way to associate, let's say, a bond cash transfer GL journal with a PFA transaction so that both would interface together.
Okay, next question is related to PFAs. How will the new PFA interface page affect submitting estimated PFAs?
Okay. So right now, estimated PFAs, the GL journals are not subject to SEO approval, and departments are just submitting paper transaction requests, of course, to record those in SEO legacy. But going forward, again, these would be subject to SEO approval. And then our plan is to have those estimated advanced PFA GL journals show on the PFA interface review page. So you would go to the review page after it's posted and then again certify, provide legal authority, and then it would interface.
Next question is, will the PFA transaction review page be broken down by federal grant?
So we are planning on doing so. We know that for some departments, they may need to even go back, or not back, but go down to the child project level. So we are planning on doing that, yes.
Next question is for federal transfers with the transaction request letters. that are posted as TC36, is SCO able to identify these as priorities?
Okay, I'm not sure if I am catching everything that this is asking, but basically, the big change with the full PFA solution, having both the PFA validation as well as the PFA interface, is that SEO is not going to be manually reviewing transaction requests they do today with their 10-day or 14-day turnaround time. Basically, the PFA validation is performing that review and making sure that everything conforms to the PFA letter. So what that means is for your LD IDs and your allocation journal activity, that won't be subject to further approval. So basically, once you go to this interface review page and you provide your certification legal authority, it'll just go over that same night. So in that sense, departments would be selecting what's priority.
The next question is, will the estimated PFAs display on the review page only once it is SEO approved, or even when it is still in the work in progress safe status?
So this one could change, but I believe that they should show only after they have been approved.
The next question is related to the mock page screenshot picture that we have. They see that the page E&Y, is this column also used of the continuous appropriation funds?
I think the answer is yes. So we would be showing whatever E and Y is there in the appropriation. I don't know if there was confusion over whether it means fiscal year or the E and Y that's part of the appropriation. But yes, the E and Y will be showing for the continuous appropriations as well.
Okay, that looks like all the questions that we have in the Q&A. I'll be moving on to
Brianna, I think there were some that we skipped over earlier, right?
Yeah,
That we wanted to cover. Yeah.
Are you referring to the private ones that were sent?
No, I don't think so.
I went back, I started from all the questions that were asked before we covered the PFA section.
Oh yeah, okay.
So if you guys have any more questions, please continue to submit them in the Q&A. I'm going to be moving on to the questions that were sent privately. First one is, what will happen if the PFA was in error, but the draw is not doing the nightly interface?
Sorry, could you repeat that, Rihanna?
Yeah. What will happen if the PFA was in error, but the draw is not doing the nightly interface?
Okay. So yeah, we're gonna defer that question for the next town hall. We'll make sure to cover that scenario. But let me make sure I've captured the question correctly. So this is a scenario where the department goes ahead and they process the federal draw, and they at the same time they're timing their PFA transaction, and they think that it's going to go over within the same day or same 3 days, and then let's say there's a crosswalk error or something, so it's stuck in Fiscal. Please let us know if that is not the scenario.
If you have any, if this didn't answer your question, you feel free to send in more for clarification, but it looks like it was right. Okay, the next question that we have is, will this report interface back to SEO Legacy journal entries for these PFA activities?
Hey, sorry, could you repeat that question?
Yeah, this is related to PFA. Will the report interface back to SEO Legacy journal entries for the PFA activities?
Okay, not quite sure what that question is asking, but let me try to cover everything. So hopefully your question gets answered too. So anything that's getting sent outbound, including by this PFA interface, will not interface back in. Obviously, since departments are doing their LDA allocation in Fiscal first, if we brought TC36 back in, you would be double posted. Now, on the we're planning on having like a history page for PFA interface activity. And this history page is intended to help departments reconcile. So to you guys achieve that goal, we are planning on showing the SEO document ID that we interface out the TC36 with, and we are going to be tying that back to the original allocation or LDID. So hopefully that answers your question.
Next question related to PFA is if we submitted estimated PFAs for fiscal year 1920 months through a paper request, how will we be able to reverse it after July 2020?
Yep, and we will definitely cover that scenario in our PFA interface town hall. I keep saying town hall. Do you guys call it town hall, Corey?
Yeah, it's the PFA interface overview town hall specifically for PFA interface.
Next question is, how do we handle corrections to PFAs? Currently, we find an error in a future month and we create a journal entry in Fiscal to correct and prepare a transaction request to send to SEO to reverse the original PFA and post the corrected amount for a month.
So again, we'll make sure to cover this in more detail in the PFA town hall, but this type of PFA correction, assuming this is the scenario where a PFA actual was sent over to SEO, and then months later you're doing a correction to correct something that was wrong with the TC36 that was posted, that would be considered a PFA correction. And there is an SEO type of transaction for GL journals currently. I think the SEO type is just PFA for PFA corrections. So you should be using that to submit these PFA corrections. And similar to the estimated advanced PFAs, right now there is no SEO workflow for that. But going forward after July, that SEO type will be subject to SEO workflow.
Okay, and I know we've been mentioning the PFA overview town hall a lot and how we're going to be covering things more specifically to the PFA interface. This person is asking when that will be.
Hey everyone, I don't have a time for you yet, but when we know, we'll make sure to get the invites out to all departments as early as possible.
Okay, the next question is related to CVC back. Question is, about once the tracking period is complete and cash validation is implemented in Fiscal controlling the cash, will associated revenue affect cash availability?
Sorry about that. My mute. Take a minute. Can you please repeat that?
Yes. The question is it about once the tracking period is complete and cash validation is implemented in Fiscal controlling the cash, will associated revenue affect cash availability?
Okay, so once we're not just tracking, they're asking, okay, yes, for cache validation and for CV approp, which would be in our cache validation appropriation control. And yes, just like in legacy.
Yeah, and then to be clear, anytime well in advance of when we are going to go live with CV CVAC control for any departments, we're going to have a similar town hall where we're just going to cover CV CVAC details for all departments, and you'll be able to get a lot more details then until we're able to make sure we have a complete understanding with the tracking. That won't happen, so make sure to be on the lookout for that.
The next question that we have.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so I think that question will be for when we go full control on this functionality. I think I saw another question in the Q&A from before that we might have missed. I go, is there a solution when the cache validation is implemented when encumbrances are reducing our authority, but reimbursements will still need to be collected? We don't look at encumbrances in the cache validation appropriation control ledger, but reimbursements will still need to be collected, yes.
Okay, the next question that we have is, when will SEO and Fiscal begin to swipe unobligated appropriation balances?
Begin to swipe. I'm not sure I understand. Is this for CVCVAC?
It's not specified.
I believe this is not under consideration at this time. I'm not sure what the swipe means.
Okay, the next question is related to the roles impacted. The invite states that AR payment processors are affected by the July release along with AR approvers. Which sections applies to these users?
And so for those users, primarily going to be around CV CVAC warnings. There are also maybe some of the interfaces, but primarily the warnings. And the CV CVAC tracking. Did you, Anthony, Nick, did you guys have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay, the next question, this one is related to CVCVAC. Will cache validation warnings list the types of cache shortages?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. This person is asking, will cache validation warnings list the type of cache shortage?
So in the in-state, once this does go control, we will have like an exception work center where this will list the type of exception there is. And then the KK exception messages will also state these type of what kind of error it would be if it wasn't just a warning.
Yeah, in preparation for our July release, we're going to release some content around the warnings to make sure you guys understand if you get this warning, it means this is kind of where you should be looking at in order to assist you guys with any NSFs you may receive later.
Yeah, and what we're going to do on our side with these warnings is we're going to do the analysis to see why is it showing that there's not sufficient funds or not sufficient authority in Fiscal, but Legacy's book of records still. So that's really why we're not going to stop the transaction from going and just having it as a warning.
But hey, Nick, there might be some cases where the warning is because there isn't enough cash and they do receive an NSF after. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. But Fiscal wouldn't be the one to stop it.
Okay, thank you.
And just to clarify, basically what cash validation appropriation control is a commitment control budget check. So like we already have in CC Approp or CC Rev, where it's budget checking at that point, basically what CVCVAC is going to do is once there's a cash impact, it's going to budget check at that point. So it's very similar to what you're already seeing in CC Approp, CC Rev, those ledgers. We're just going to implement it at the cash impacting part.
Okay.
Okay, it looks like all the questions in the Q&A section have been answered now. If you have any more, please continue to send them in. We'll be going back to the questions that were sent privately. First one is asking if we could explain a little bit more about direct transfers with DGS versus those going live on that slide that we had.
Okay, so today, as of the March release, all direct transfers from departments. So, everybody should know when we talk about direct transfers, there is a set of billing departments that are allowed to actually initiate a direct transfer. Some of them are listed here, some of them are not. So you have DGS, OES, CHP, CAL FIRE, SPB, and you also have departments like SCIF or Caltech who can do these direct transfers. I think there might be a few more as well. So they're the ones that are allowed to do a direct transfer as a billing department, and what they do is they just take money from all the bill departments. So to account for those, a department will send a direct transfer request to SCO, and SCO will send you your SCO JE that has the build amount, and then you used to do a catch up, and ever since March, those have been interfacing in, except the DGS ones. And that is because DGS ones are already in Fiscal. You already have all that data. It's already in Fiscal as in the AP and AR modules, since they use the Fiscal direct transfer process. And in the future, these coming soon departments will begin to use that Fiscal direct transfer process too. It's not the DGS process; it's the Fiscal process. And when there's some advantages to using it, so these departments want to use it. And so what this is doing is, we know that there's a case where maybe a build department has a voucher that sits in build error for a while. We still need to make sure legacy and SCO, or SCO legacy and Fiscal are in sync. So they are going to create a GL journal similar to, if SCIF does a direct transfer, which is outside of the Fiscal billing process since they're a non-Fiscal department. And then when the AP voucher for any build departments is, once that posts, the GL journal will get reversed, so there's no double counting. Anthony, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'll be honest, I was zoning out a little bit reading through the chat questions. So if you want to give me the scenario again, please.
Oh, it's just, I think they said a clear explanation on DT versus those going live. So I think it's just kind of the difference. So right now, if OES creates a direct transfer, that's interfacing in, and then you can reclassify it or do whatever you need. And in the future, when OES comes onto the Fiscal direct transfer process, a voucher will be created on your behalf. And then, if it goes into build area, you'll just need to manage those. Hopefully it doesn't go into build area, and then it's just pretty much automatic for you. And that'll help all, because in AP you get all your departmental chart fields, and so that way you don't need to do any reclassification.
Yeah, I think you covered everything, Corey. So basically for the TC39s that were coming in as part of the November release, so that's all the no warrants, and then the DTs that are not initiated in Fiscal. So basically everything that's not an FGS document, right? For those, we were just, and we will be, just posting them in GL. Now, for the FGS documents, these were excluded from GL 108 because there's this existing Fiscal standard DT process, which DGS uses, which creates the submodule postings, right? So for departments, that would be the voucher. Basically, our functionality that's coming out in July is this, we call it a DT reversal process. It ensures that the DT activity is in sync between legacy and Fiscal. So similar to the calculator's process, right? There could be vouchers which they have build error for extended period of time, maybe weeks, even months in some cases, right? So the problem with that is that for that entire period of time, SEO legacy and Fiscal are out of sync, right? So that's the reason that we're bringing in this placeholder GL journal. In those cases of a voucher build error or something like that, the ledgers will still be in sync. And then after the voucher has posted, then our GL journal is automatically reversed. Again, the ledgers are in sync. It's recorded once and only once, right? And by reversing out the GL journal, departments should not have to have any reclass work because DGS should already have your departmental chart field values. So it should be recorded correctly, basically. And just one last thing, sorry. And the reason we had to exclude the FGS documents for the November release was because without this reversal process also deploying, like you guys would be double posted, right? Because it would be recorded in GL and also in the voucher that DGS creates and has been creating. So that's why those were excluded until now.
And then we're getting a few questions in the chat. If really appreciate if everyone posts their questions in the Q&A. It makes it easier for us to manage the Q&A process. So we still have, we're almost at the top of the hour at 3 o'clock. We have until 4 p.m. For questions. We do have a few more slides, but all of the content slides have been covered in those 3 areas: SEO integrations, CV/CVAC, and PFA interface. So those are the 3 big areas of functionality change that impacts departments. So please keep asking questions, and we're going to keep going through Q&A.
Okay, this next question is related to this page that you have up right now. This person is asking about how they see that DGS is live with direct transfers, and does that mean departments don't have to reclassify any longer?
So I think the answer to that question, and I am seeing multiple related questions. So we're not making changes to the DGS direct transfer process as part of this release. So whatever the process has been for your department, it'll continue to work the same way. The only change as part of this release is that temporary GL journal, just to keep SEO legacy and Fiscal in sync in the case of voucher build errors, for example. And yeah, like I think there were 2 recent questions, one private to me. The one that was private was, hi, will there be any changes in July for DGS transfers in the AP module? Again, the answer to that is no. Although I should say, sorry, I need to correct myself. So no, technically as part of this release. However, there is a separate team that is working on related functionality for DT refunds, which will be deploying within the same time frame. So right now, the way DT refunds works is there is a negative voucher created for the department. Going forward after that enhancement goes live, instead there would be a direct journal payment created for the departments. And on DGS's side, they would have a normal voucher.
Then Anthony, there was a follow-up to that. So does that mean after July 2020, even DGS direct transfers will not be reclassed?
So right now, I'm not aware if departments may need to do reclassification work even after they give DGS the chart field values to use. But if that is the case, then yes, you would need to continue to do so. Basically, whatever your process is now, it's going to continue.
Okay, the next question we have is related to PFA. This person uses PFA request for labor, and they want clarification that in July, they will see the labor ID in the PFA interface GL review page, where they can review and certify the activity and then send to the process.
Oh, sorry, was that a question for me?
Yes.
This relates
Okay,
to PFA. Looks like
I'm
they're
really
asking about
sorry.
the process.
People pinging me. Read it again, please.
Yeah, so looks like they're asking for what the process is going to look like in July, related to using PFA requests for labor. So they want to clarify that in July, they will see the labor ID in the PFA interface review page. And then from there, they can review and certify the activity and then send to SCO for processing.
So we are not planning on going at that level, where you would select individual LDIDs, for example. Instead, what we're working on is giving departments the ability to select appropriations that are ready to send over on the PFA interface. So, for example, we know that there may be like federal appropriations that you're waiting to do a draw for. So you may need to wait to schedule that draw before you're able to send over the TC36 to Legacy for those. But if it's the only thing that you're waiting on, you would have the ability to send over all of your other activity. So it wouldn't matter if it's like spread across multiple LDIDs or allocation journals. You would be able to pick and choose the appropriations that you are ready to PFA over. And sorry, just going back to direct transfers. If there are any billing departments that are interested in using the Fiscal standard DT process, you could reach out to DGS and work with DGS, and they will help get you onboarded on that process.
Yeah, you can also reach out to Fiscal CMO mailbox. So that's the fiscal.ca or .cmo at fiscal.ca.gov. And then we can also try to facilitate that as well.
Okay, the next question, taking questions from the Q&A again. First one is there a way to disencumber with direct transfers?
Okay, I think that one's going to have to be a takeaway for Bosdi.
The next question, this is related to direct transfers. This person's situation is we had a direct transfer agreement with PIA. We canceled it as the system couldn't handle transactions involving bond funds, cash transfers. Will the new functionality address this?
I think we're going to need more detail on this to give you a full answer. So if you could elaborate more, and then maybe we could take that as a takeaway and follow up with the appropriate parties to answer that question.
Okay, the next question is there going to be bond cash transfer interface coming up for the bond fund, direct payroll, and PFA?
For PFA, we do have plans to support bond cash transfer. As I mentioned briefly earlier, we'll have more details for you in the PFA interface town hall. For direct payroll, I think we'll need to take that one as a takeaway.
Next question related to PFAs. What will be the process for credit PFAs?
Yep, again, for that one, we're going to need to defer that until the PFA interface town hall once we finalize that detail. But yeah, I mean, that has been a particular topic of interest for SEO this entire time. So don't worry, we are not going to drop that one.
Okay, the next question. So it sounds like we can run the PFA interface multiple times and it'll show only outstanding appropriation items. Is that correct?
You're not gonna read their example?
Example they gave. So if on round 1 we excluded federal, then on round 2 only federal will be displayed for that month.
That is the plan. Yes, that's correct. Now, things may change between now and the PFA interface town hall. So, again, thank you for your question. And yeah, we'll make sure we address all of these questions at the PFA interface town hall. But right now, the plan is to do exactly what you said.
The next question is, when departments have selected submitted PFA appropriations / activities in Fiscal, does it require SEO approval before interfacing?
So the answer to that one is no. The only PFA related transactions that are planned to have workflow, at least right now, again, these things could change, but we're not planning on having additional workflow for your LD or allocations, right? But for the manual GL journals for estimated and advanced PFAs, as well as PFA corrections, we are planning on workflowing those. But all the other stuff, including manual allocation GL journals, allocation journals, and LDIDs, those should not be subject to further approval because they've already gone through PFA validation.
Okay, now we're going to switch gears a little bit and answer some CBCBAC questions that we have. Nick, this question is there any change toward fund reconciliation, cash reconciliation due to the cash validation process?
As far as us at Fiscal, yes, we will be reconciling to make sure that our CVAC ledgers are working correctly in Fiscal. That's kind of the reason why we're tracking to begin with and not going full control, so that we can really analyze what exceptions are getting created and make sure that they are true exceptions, because legacy still book a record.
We also had another question. It's probably related. Is there any change toward trial balance report layout due to cash validation?
To our knowledge, since these are KK ledgers, no, but we will follow up on that and let you know.
Looks like all the questions have been answered for now. unless I'm missing anything.
I think there was a follow-up regarding the PIA DT thing. Yeah, I don't think that we have the right staff here to answer that question though. So, um, do you think we should have them email like samples and everything, more detail, as much detail as they can give, to Fiscal CMO, and then we can reach out to Prod Support or whoever can help with this?
Yeah, I think that sounds good because this is like a process-based detail question. So what we can do is get in touch with the RC and have them drive these conversations to a close.
Corey, we had one question. It's not related to this presentation, but they're asking, when are the BCT journals functionality going to be mandated?
Okay, so there is some bond cash transfer functionality going on for AP vouchers. It's different than from my understanding, the bond cash transfers for PFA. And those are, we've been asking departments if you send in transaction requests to do a cash transfer for, any bond expenditures using vouchers to do it in Fiscal. And there's no set date. It's more of SCO would like to see departments take action. So that way, SCO understands that departments understand the functionality. There's no hard and fast date for that. And if there is one, we'd let you know well in advance.
The next question is related to FGS entries. As of right now, our FGS entries are post AP module, but the codings were incorrect. Therefore, we run a KK report and then post a care/11N JE upload. Is this what we will continue to do on this release? If wrong, please advise.
So yeah, you could definitely continue to do that. Again, we're not really making changes to the way that the Fiscal DT process works. The only thing that we're adding is the placeholder GL journal and then the reversal of the GL journal after the voucher's posted. However, if the codings are always incorrect, maybe you guys could send an email to Fiscal CMO and then we could forward it on over to DGS and have them work with you to correct those codings.
Okay, the next question is related to the TC37 payroll. It looks like they want more clarification on that, asking us to touch base.
Okay. I mean, this is nothing new. Again, this was part of the November release where we're interfacing in all of the TC37s. So departments should not have been recording catch-up journals for the CLO or CLRs since November. So I don't know if maybe I know some departments refer to that posting as an LD offset, if that helps clarify. But yeah, basically we had a task. What was it, Tech 909, Corey?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we had a task out to have departments update their reporting unit translation tables, basically so that each department could give us one set of departmental values to use for labor, and basically what we did with that was we're putting it on the CLO or CLR, and assuming that the department cleaned up all of their reporting unit translations to be consistent as per the task, there should have been no manual work because labor would automatically reverse out what we had posted for the LD offset. So all of that happened prior to November.
And then for anything like the payroll, if you have questions on that or you'd like to make changes to your configuration, you're going to have to reach out to the Fiscal Service Center, so FSC, and open a ticket with them.
The next question is the DB2 report going to be fixed to identify unreconciled items and expedite the monthly fund reconciliation?
Okay, sorry, that one might need to be a takeaway.
Okay. Is that related to PFA?
I don't know what that's related to, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We're not really sure what the DB2 report is, so it doesn't seem like this team is going to work on any DB2 report changes for July. So if you could send us some more details, we'll probably take it away and take a look at it too.
Okay, the next question is related to CVCVAC. Is cash validation based on CC appropriate, or will a new ledger be created to do cash validation?
So cash validation and the cash validation appropriation control will be new ledgers that are created, new KK ledgers. So for the cash validation, there will be a CC underscore cash val ledger. This will track the fund balance at a statewide level. And then when we talk about cash validation appropriation control, that'll basically, if you're comparing to CC approp, there will be a CC underscore CV approp, and that'll be our cash validation appropriation control ledger. And it'll work the same way as the CC approp ledger as far as budget checking goes. But yes, these will be new KK ledgers that will budget check when cash impacting transactions happen.
The next question is, will fund level transactions such as pro rata, fiscal, inter-fund loans be interfacing from legacy as well? Or will departments still continue to post catch-up journals?
Yes, those will all be interfacing from legacy to fiscal. That's correct. So departments should no longer be recording catch-up journals for those. And just FYI, again, similar to Smith, even though departments were recording the catch-up journals for Smith under their own BUs, or I should say the fund administrator, the fund admins were recording the catch-up journals under their own BUs. These journals would not be recorded under a departmental BU. So for example, pro rata, it will be recorded under 9900 BU, just the same way it is in legacy. And then for some of the interfund loan activity, if I'm understanding the question correctly, this would be stuff like general fund daily borrowing, where it's due from other funds and due to other funds. That activity would be posted under statewide BU as well, because cash is recorded under 0000.
Hey, Brianna, can I clarify one thing on the last answer?
Yeah.
For the cash validation ledgers, I mentioned CC approp and CV approp just because that was what was mentioned in that question. There's also going to be, just like there's a CC underscore rev, there will be a CC underscore CV rev, and same with CC clearing. There'll be a CC CV clearing as well.
Thank you for the clarification. Looks like we have another question related to those ledgers. Will departments need to reconcile cash validation ledgers?
Because we're going with track width and not control, I think let's take that away and we'll follow up.
Okay, the next one is related to direct transfers. Are the TC39 journal entries on the GL108 direct transfers interfaced?
I think the answer to this will be yes. So again, since November, wait, is it since March? Since March. Since March, all of the TC39s except for FGS have been interfaced on a daily basis. And that includes the ones that have document prefix JE, which are the no warrant claims. And yeah, starting with this release, the FGS documents will be coming in as well, and then again automatically being reversed out once the the DT voucher is created for your department, created and posted, I should say.
Corey, it looks like all of the questions in the Q&A have been answered for now.
Okay.
Sorry, I just one question, just a private one to me in chat, I guess. So the question read, when will we include journal voucher and GL voucher in PFA? So not super clear on what the question is asking, but I believe that activity is picked up in your allocation. That would be picked up by the PFA interface as part of your allocation journal activity. If that didn't answer your question, please elaborate and let us know.
All right, so I'll go on to, upcoming events. So you'll see here, we've got
Hi, Corey, this is Nick. I have an answer for that last CVAC question.
the reconciler one.
Yes, departments will not need to do this until we set to control.
Okay. All right. So you'll see here, as we approach July release, we've got a series of town halls. We've got the PFA interface overview town hall. I know it's listed as in May here. The timing of that is still not known, but when we have a good date for you guys with all of the details, we'll have that well in advance. There's a chance that we might kind of swap this into early June or mid-June, depending on where it's at, and then have the upcoming release town hall here instead. So what you see here is that we will be asking department liaisons to assign managers within the impacted groups. So if anything that we talked through today was impacted, we're going to ask change discussions occur so that way everybody is aware of the changes. We've answered a lot of questions today and we'll continue to answer the questions. A lot of the upcoming town halls are going to be a little bit of a rehash of today's content to make sure everybody's aware of it, to make sure that any questions that were answered verbally, we can try to incorporate that content into the slides itself. And for the PFA interface overview town hall, that's going to be coming up as well. We're going to go a deep dive into PFA, so that way you can get all of the details that we weren't able to cover today. So we've got the change discussions that are going to happen during the month of June. It's really important that the change discussions occur between supervisors and their staff who are going to be impacted by the functionality. The plan right now is to go live in July 1, since all of this content and all of this functional changes is going to be impactful to next fiscal year. It won't necessarily be impactful for anything prior to this fiscal or prior to next fiscal year, since it won't be live yet, and the book will have closed after. So the plan is to have one town hall for just CVCVEC, 2 town halls that are overviewed before for Q&A, anything that you'd like to get awareness about it. And then after we go live and you start to see some functionality, we've got 2 town halls after. So if anything comes up while you were transacting or after the go live, you'll have plenty of opportunity there to answer questions, to get any additional details from what we're seeing in the system. In this presentation, so like I said, if you haven't received the presentation yet, you can go into the calendar invite. It is linked to ServiceNow. We've got the copy. It won't have the Menti details in there. And then you can check out links to all of the additional resources. So if you were looking for the infographic, I know Anthony talked about Job Aid 451. It's linked there. You've got some SAM links, and so we've got a PFA kickoff if you were part of those kickoff sessions and the validation that occurred. That gives you some background on how the trees are set up for a PFA validation and how your PFA letter is configured in Fiscal. All right, so we're still going to be around to answer some questions. Based on Menti, it'd be good to see how you guys feel like the town hall went today. So Menti's going to be up. We're going to use this to try to give any, if we feel like we could do better, to improve the overall presentation for future. So you please go ahead and go to menti.com and enter the code 932886. We do take your feedback very seriously, and if you have any specific feedback you'd like to give to us or to our teams about our setup, we're doing this completely remote now, so it's a little bit different than when we have, we were trying to make some improvements in person to make sure we had better mic quality, better sound quality, and everything in our kind of studio setup at Fiscal. But since we're not there anymore, maybe the mic isn't as clear. I can try to make some upgrades there. So if you send any feedback there, I'd appreciate it. You can also contact us at the Fiscal CMO mailbox. So that's fiscal.cmo@fiscal.cia.gov. We always take questions there. We work with the RC teams pretty closely to make sure that we're meeting all of your needs, or if you see anything. I just got one question with the PDF copy of the presentation. Yes, it's on ServiceNow right now. You can either search the title, or you can go to the calendar invite, and maybe if you got to forward it, it should still be in there. It's all on ServiceNow, and you should be able to access it. So that came up quite a bit. And then we've got a few more questions that have come up. And then we'll be here until we're just not getting any more questions anymore.
First question that came up is, do we need to reclassify journals?
So whether or not you would need to classify a no warrant GL journal brought in by our interface is at your department's discretion. If you would like some guidance on this topic, I recommend reaching out to your finance analyst.
Okay. And someone else asked a question CVCVAC that Nick typed a response to, but I'll just read it out for everybody. This is asking when they will need to reconcile for CVCVAC, and Nick's answer was not until the CVCVAC functionality is set to control.
And at this time, we don't have a timeline for that. We're doing it with a pilot of a very small group of departments that we're still planning for. So even those departments haven't been set. The goal is, like Nick said, Nick can probably go over it a little better than I can, but to get all the data in Fiscal, do the analysis, and then make sure that this is going to work for departments. It's to the benefit of departments that CVCVAC comes in, especially since, as far as I know, the NSF process is not easy. One more thing, we've been getting a lot of feedback about timing, about the rollouts. We understand your concerns around that, so we'll pass that feedback on.
We have one question. Would condemnation-related transactions interface in July, or do we still need to reclassify? For some details, TC38 Fund 0910, Condemnation Deposits Fund Account 543200, Grants and Subconvention. Go.
Okay, if I'm not mistaken, I believe these are already interfacing in. Now, if the CDF transactions are interfacing at too high of a level, then you would need to continue to reclassify. There is no, as far as the July release, there wouldn't be the functionality to provide the detail level from treasurers. So most likely, I'm not sure if I fully understand the question, but most likely your current process would have to continue.
Yeah, And I actually received a question privately, and this is why, it's really best if anybody has any more questions to include them in the Q&A box so that way we can all see them. It says, hi, will there be any changes for ORF Advance in the AP module? I know we still have to do a replenishment.
Okay, could you elaborate on that question? Like give me a scenario or something. But I'll try to answer it the best I can. And yeah, please elaborate if I'm not answering your question the way that you would like. Um, so if you are augmenting your existing ORF or you have a new CTS account and you're establishing an ORF, um, you can continue to submit a claim schedule in order to do so. We are exploring the possibility of allowing departments to create vouchers instead, but that is still a work in progress. And yeah, we'll have details at a later date.
We received another question related to ORF. The ORF claim schedule will be reclassed with Job Aid 400. Am I correct?
So I think this is off the top of my head, I don't remember which job aid 400 is. However, the job aid 451 reclassification goes over the scenarios where you're doing a GL to AR reclassification, where you are doing a GL to GL reclassification, or you are doing a GL to AP reclassification. I believe claim schedules are stored in AP, and so that might be a little bit different. I know that there is some content that we created previously about how to do a reclassification for a claim. And so I think that might also be linked or listed in, that might also be listed. So I would go, the ones for claim, I believe, are Job Aid 401. It's just been a little bit since we worked on those. So I would say if you have a question about the job aid specifically, you can either, if they're a live process, you can reach out to the service center. They should be able to provide it to you. And if you're interested in, I think the Fiscal Service Center is going to be your best bet for processes that are already live.
They clarified that the Job Aid 400 is for NFO.
Okay. Yeah, I would recommend, like Corey said, submitting an FSC ticket, and we can get an answer from someone from BOSD.
Okay. So we updated the Menti question. So thank you for all of your feedback about how we've done. So we'd really like to know how we could improve. It's an open entry. I'm not going to share what the answers are. It'll be private. I have no way of linking it back to you. So you guys can give us your honest feedback about what we're doing well, what we could improve upon, and what we should stop doing if there's something that we need to stop doing. So I'll leave that open now. Please keep giving us presentation feedback. We really use it to be as helpful as possible. And then we're going to be here. It doesn't look like we have very many more questions coming in about the functionality. I do know that there might be a case where you'll think about a question later, and in that case, please send an email to the Fiscal CMO mailbox. So that's fiscal.cmo@fiscal.ca.gov, and then we'll do your best to answer it there. We try to include any questions that are sent to the mailbox in our content. So sometimes you'll see, even though we might not list the question out directly, we create content specifically to answer that question. We've had a lot of people on the call today, and we've had a lot of questions. I know it's quite a bit. That's why we made it 2.5 hours to make sure we had enough time. Doesn't look like we've had any more questions coming in, so we're going to give it a few more minutes, and then if no more questions come in, we'll sign off and give everyone the time back. But please, go to menti.com, enter the code 932886, and give us your feedback. Thank you. Okay, so we're getting, we had one question around where will we be able to see this town hall at a later date. So we are, maybe I can just show you guys actually. I'm loading it up for everybody. Okay. So if anybody ever goes to YouTube you can search Fiscal, and then you'll see our Fiscal page. And so for us, when this loads, you'll see here that there's videos and playlists. You can go see all the videos, but what I recommend for our content is to take a look at the playlists. And then you'll see here, what we do is we create playlists for each release. So we're going to create, since this is the first one for the July release, we're going to create a new playlist that's going to have the recording of this town hall today, and you'll be able to go refer to it. It will be pretty long, so I understand that. You'll have the CCs available there, the closed captioning, and then you can reference it in the future if you're looking for something specific. So we do try to post these on the Fiscal YouTube. And then for the Q&A, since it's all verbal, we don't have the resource to document them yet. We're still looking into doing that. But what we do is we'll take the questions again and put them into our next presentation, which we should have a few coming up before we go live. So hopefully that helps. And it doesn't look like we're getting any more questions, so I really appreciate all the feedback that you guys are giving us. It's some good feedback, and then we'll try to take as much action on the feedback as we can to make sure it's as useful and efficient for you as possible. Okay. Since we're not getting any more questions, I'm going to call this session to a close. Thank you all for joining us today. We had quite a few participants on the call. I know it's 2 hours out of your afternoon, so really appreciate that in preparation for July. Thank you, everybody, and have a great week.